G'day guys, JB here. Week 1 of the NBA season for 2021-22 is in the books. Thought I'd have a bit of a look over each division, over each team, a couple of comments on each, where I think they're at, where I think they'll go, do I think they've got anything to improve on, what their future holds, and we'll see what we can get out of it from there. Starting the Atlantic Division, and we'll go with Philadelphia. They're tracking okay. I mean, it's evident they're missing the perimeter D of a Ben Simmons, and they're not quite getting the production out of Joel Embiid they want at the moment, but there are some very positive signs. Tobias Harris still able to play that second, third role. He's been able to provide some solid scoring for them. Seth Curry, he's been able to do the same as well. Certainly can't complain about some of the production he's had as well. But Tyrese Maxey has been a revelation for them as well. He's really upped his scoring and really upped his presence on this squad as well. They are top of the division at the moment. Going forward, it'd be interesting to see where they sit. Obviously, by the time you probably hear this, they will have played their fourth game of the season. This one against New York, their division rivals. It'll be interesting to see just how they play out there. But yeah, plenty of things for me that I like about Philadelphia at the moment. They've obviously got Embiid there. He can just look after his knees a little bit. I know he already has had a knee complaint this year that saw him miss a game. If he can look after that, there's no reason that they can't continue to push on. Tobias Harris, that second option, and Seth Curry providing some good third alternative scoring along with Tyrese Maxey. I think the only question I would have is moving Matisse Thybulle into this lineup. I would play Tobias Harris at the 4. I would run Thybulle at the 3, and I would run Curry and Maxey across the 2 and the 1 personally. I just think that really gives them a lot more depth defensively, and Thybulle was an all-defensive team member last year, so they would be my starters going forward, and they would be, honestly, I think a far better lineup defensively, which would help them in a lot of situations. Obviously, they're going to need a bit more out of Embiid, and once that starts to happen, then this team will be fine, but I think for the moment, just to ease that adjustment and ease the pressure on Embiid, I would move Thybulle into the starting lineup, no doubt about that. Moving to New York, plenty of scoring options on this team, there's no doubt about it. Plenty of leadership on this team, there's no doubt about it. And this isn't a very selfish Knicks team, which at times I think they've needed to be. Randall obviously still wanting that ball on the perimeter when the game gets going and when it starts to hit the peaks and valleys of itself. He needs to catch that ball on the low block in crunch time. He cannot be relied upon on the perimeter. And in saying that, he's got a lot of help on the perimeter. Kemba Walker, Derrick Rose, Evan Fournier, RJ Barrett. Still got Robinson and Obi Toppin in that squad as well. Plenty of depth in this New York team. I've got them finishing top 4 still in this conference, and I just think they will make those adjustments accordingly. They just need to be able to close out these close games a little better, but I think they will be fine. Randall wanting to build on his MIP season last year. How much he builds on it, I don't know, but there's evidence to say that he's got a lot he can build on from that standpoint as well. Not much to improve on. Again, I think this will be a nice litmus test going up against Philadelphia. They were questionable in their closeout against Boston, but they managed to get the job done. I think that's just, that's the New York thing at the moment. They need to get over those jittery games. They need to learn to adjust. They need to learn to, play tighter defense, especially when you've got a hot hand like a Jalen Brown, who consistently in those bigger games is probably going to step up a bit more than a Tatum. We'll get to that in a second, but that's just something that they obviously need to keep an eye on as well. But I think the Knicks are fine. They've got plenty going for them. They're exciting to watch. They're fun to watch. They've got plenty of depth at their, respective positions, so it's good to see them clicking. Boston, again, I think it's just going to be a matter of getting some consistency out of Tatum and Brown. We've seen the fact that both of them can play elite basketball. We've also seen the fact that both of them can struggle to play elite basketball. Tatum's had 2 good games, Brown's had 2 good games. However, the vast difference in their very good to great games versus their subpar to ordinary games is, at times the width of the Grand Canyon, and it's something they're certainly going to have to address going forward. They're not the deepest team by any stretch. They've obviously lost a lot in the coaching department with Brad Stevens not sitting there. but they are working ways to get points on the board, and they are working ways to get wins. Third in this division, in one of the toughest divisions in the entire league. 4 of those 5 teams, you could argue 3 of those 4 teams pushing for top 4 in their respective conference. 4 of the 5 wanting to make the playoffs, and even that team at the bottom really pushing a couple of teams in another division earlier, or certainly during this week. But I think it's a matter of getting some consistency out of Tatum and Brown at this point. Tatum with a 40 game, Brown with a 30 and 40 game. Tatum's had a 30 game as well, but it is those subpar performances that to me are just what's going to let them down. And until they can fix that, or they can address that with a trade, then again you're going to see Boston certainly in the bottom half of that playoff top 8, so to speak, in the East. Certainly in the play-in rounds as well. I do think that Tatum is pretty much peaked to where he's going to be. I don't know how much more Jalen Brown's got left. He certainly had a very breakout season by anyone's standards last year. So it'll be interesting to see how he can grow on that. For Brooklyn, James Harden at the moment is just falling by the wayside. Injuries, one thing, not sticking and being able to adjust essentially to the new rules is another, and I think that's a big thing at the moment. He can't live at the foul line. He's not getting those calls he would normally get. He's not the same quote-unquote athlete that he was prior to some injuries and concerns. He's a guy who doesn't really worry about conditioning. He's a guy that comes in, plays his way into form. Well, that was all well and good for Shaquille O'Neal, but Shaq was 7 foot, Shaq was 330, and Shaq would end up giving you 35 and 15 in the NBA Finals. James Harden's getting you to the second round, and he's proven that as a leader and a second option. Kevin Durant's fine. He's back. He's in MVP form. He's going to need some help along the way, though. And the one bit of help I do like for this Brooklyn team right now is Patty Mills. Wouldn't have picked him to fit in as well as he did, but he is a shooter. He is a skill set. He's well skilled, and I certainly think that a lot of people have seen the way he performed in the Olympics. And if you are going to give him the ball, he's going to score and he's going to do what he needs to do. And he's certainly done that for Brooklyn so far. He was, hadn't missed a shot from 3 in his opening 2 games. That streak's now been broken. But that's a solid piece to come off your bench. It's a nice complementary piece with everything else they've got running there. LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin, Paul Millsap. Again, you've got Claxton in that team as well. Lots of things. Joe Harris as well, still with that squad. To me, they are certainly still the side to beat, and when they start clicking on all cylinders, they will be a very tough team to beat. But for me, it's just going to be really, really tough seeing how James Harden's going to adjust to these rules. If he can get that sorted, that's fine. But I think there's going to be some real issues there. And while I do think he's a viable second option for a team, it's not going to be much more than third on a championship team. He's really going to struggle in the playoffs if this is going to be the future for him in the regular season. And Toronto, they're going to be bottom of the division, there's no doubt about that. But they've had some competitive moments, some competitive streaks. Fred VanVleet with a nice game, 15 points, 17 assists, heading against Chicago, nearly giving them their first loss of the season to end week 1. But again, they're going to be a bottom-feeding seed, and it's just a matter of, the Anunobys and your Gary Trent's going to get some consistency into them. Pascal Siakam needs to really take that step we thought he'd taken a couple of years ago, and vice versa. Van Vliet, they've got these big contracts. They need to start living up to them. But for me, Toronto's going to be a cellar dweller in this one. I don't see them going much further than maybe 5th last, so maybe 10th in the East at the moment. I don't even think they... I think that's pretty much a compliment too, because I think they'll struggle for playing. So that 10-11 seed is certainly going to be their absolute max, and I don't see them doing much more than that. But, they pushed a side that we're about to talk about, Chicago, to the brink and really forced them to consider how they play as well. So it'll be interesting to see how they go forward. Moving over to Chicago, and they're one of the most potent offensive teams right now in the league, and they are a scary proposition right now. 4-0 for the first time since Jordan and Pippen in 1997. You've got Zach LaVine, and I think it is Zach LaVine's team, and I think the sooner they realise that it is Zach LaVine's team, they are going to be a better squad. Demar Derozan's had a couple of games, but as people have pointed out, Demar Derozan, when he was the man in Toronto, how did those teams go? Didn't do as well as they probably should have, but he's a very nice second option, Demar Derozan, there's no doubt about that. I think he had his best year last year in San Antonio. Personally, I thought he had his best year in San Antonio last year, and if you can even keep a smidgen of that form as a second option here on this team, then again, sky is the limit. You've also got Nikola Vucevic on this team offensively. There's a lot to like about that as well. And again, Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso, I think, have been the best defensive backcourt in the league so far this season. We're only a week into it, but they have been menaces on the defensive end. Caruso with some explosive plays on the offensive end, and again, Lonzo Ball able to get those triple-doubles. But for me, Chicago are a dangerous prospect. I did have them sitting just out of that 4, but I might need to reconsider that depending on where they sit on the All-Star break. But they've had a nice start to the season. Needs to be Levine's team. I think they need to continually run with Levine. He's been that piece that really built things last year and ultimately was the magnet of attraction to get your Lonzo Balls, your Alex Caruso's, your Nikola Vucevic's, to get your Demar Derozans as well. So I think there needs to be a respect thing, and that's ultimately something that will need to be tested with Chicago, because in previous years that's been something they've let slip by the wayside, working out who the leader of respective teams are. But for me, Chicago is certainly a team that is going to be a playoff team, and I think one that might surprise a few more going forward. Milwaukee, what can I say? The defending champs, and I think they will be consistently considered a finals threat, particularly with the way Giannis's jump shot has developed a little bit. I do get a little concerned at times. I think they have been a bit hot and cold as far as second and third scoring options there. But, I mean, in a game today, as I record this, in a game today against Indiana, with the likes of no Bobby Portis, with the likes of no DiVincenzo, with the likes of no Brook Lopez, they still managed to get the job done. And Indiana have been a very competitive team in the opening week, so there are some positive signs there. I think Giannis is on a mission for that MVP once again. 3 MVPs would cement him right up there amongst some of the greats to play the game, and if he backs it up with a finals MVP and another championship, then yeah, look out, that's a guy who's going to skyrocket up a lot of ratings there. But for me, Milwaukee, they just need to find some consistent scoring outside of their 2 lead scorers, and even at times need to find a consistent second scorer. Once they ice things up a little bit, again, their ball movement's good. The addition of Grayson Allen has been awesome. And they're looking like, again, another top 2, top 3 seed here in the East. Cleveland, they're a really eclectic bunch. They've got the pieces around them to make them exciting. They've got the potential written all over them. Colin Sexton continues to grow. Jarrett Allen's been great as a big man for them. But it's just a matter of getting the job done for me. And we're just waiting for them to really break out of their shell and really get that job done. No doubt about it, Sexton is the future of this team, is the leader of this team. So it'll be interesting to see just how they push through with that. Jarrett Allen, again, good rim protector, solid double-double guy, plays inside reasonably well. I think he's going to be a good complement there to Sexton. How much Kevin Love is going to get out of himself this season is another question. This is a guy who's really fallen off the arc really quickly, which is unfortunate. I mean, we all know Kevin Love was arguably the best offensive power forward some 7-8 years ago. Was a bit hamstrung playing next to LeBron and was just never really able to find his touch again after that. But yeah, Cleveland, again, I've got them as a bottom 4, bottom 5 seed. I'm not expecting too much out of them, but there is plenty to like about this young team. And they did surprise a few people last year, so don't be shocked if it happens again. And Detroit, what can you say? I think they are going to be the absolute dwellers. I think your Sadiq Bays and I think your Jeremy Grants are going to be looking reasonably well. Cade Cunningham's going to be looking good as well. But outside of that, really not much in Detroit at the moment. I think you've got to give them a couple of years. You've got to let them develop. You've got to let them grow. You've got to try and acquire a couple of senior pieces to give some guidance and some culture and some positive reinforcement to that team. But at the moment, cellar dweller and pretty easy to move on from there. Charlotte, Miles Bridges getting Eastern Conference Player of the Week did shock me, but it didn't shock me at the same time. I think he's going to have a really breakout season. He's starting to really grow there, and if he's playing, again next to the likes of LaMelo Ball and a Gordon Hayward, Charlotte have been looking really, really well. I think they can be potentially a playoff team. I didn't have them, I don't believe, as a playoff team, and if I did, it was certainly in the lower ranks of the playoffs. I would say, looking at that I did not have them as a playoff team, but they will certainly be thereabouts and they will disrupt some people. But Miles Bridges really putting the league on notice in the first week. It'll be interesting to see if he can keep that up. But he has showed some explosion, he showed some good defense, and he showed capable scoring, which I think will certainly relieve Gordon Hayward and LaMelo Ball at the moment. Again, run-of-the-mill team. They are a team that's still growing, but they are a far better squad than I think a lot of people picked them, certainly at the start of last year, and they've certainly got plenty to grow on this year. So it'll be interesting to see just what they do. I think they can be that last playoff spot, if not certainly in the playing seed there. I do not see them falling apart without injury. And, they're going to, really shake up that conference and, certainly shake up some seedings just with a couple of tough games here or there and probably some surprise wins. For Washington, Spencer Dinwiddie has been really nice for this team so far. Didn't quite play as well as I thought he would have today, but he's been a really nice addition. And again, sort of mixed emotions around him and, Caris LeVert, particularly when they were in Brooklyn. They sort of held that fort there for a couple of years, but it's good to see Dinwiddie out, still playing some good basketball. He's a guy that I've had on my radar certainly for a couple of years now, and he can really play. He's a nice complementary guard piece there to Bradley Beal. And again, you've still got Bertans, you've still got Thomas Bryant, you've still got Hashimura on that squad. Again, I don't see much more than a play-in. But again, they're going to be similar to Charlotte. They're going to give you some tough games. They're going to present you with some interesting challenges defensively when you're trying to look after some bigs that can really, some genuine bigs that can genuinely stretch the floor, and then two guards with the capability, certainly of Dinwiddie and Beal. Again, no more than a 9th, 10th seed for me. They might get in on a playing tournament, but they are certainly a tough squad to go through. Just realised that I haven't gone over Indiana, so I will duck back to them just quickly. Again, they're going to be another tough team. I had them just missing the playoffs, just around that playing seed as well. And again, it's just been a matter of closing out. It's just been a matter of execution. But there is certainly some positives in this Indiana squad. Again, Brogdon continues to take steps as, a top 5, potentially top 10, well, certainly a top 10 for me, point guard in the league. Sabonis still a top 10 big in the league. They do have those vital bits and pieces there, but they just need to be able to capitalise on them. And I think it'll be interesting to see how Rick Carlisle really uses the idea of having a Sabonis who can play, certainly not to the level of Dirk, but certainly play a Dirk-style role. And then having a Brogdon who's certainly more inclined to score than a Jason Kidd, and certainly more inclined to pass than a Jason Terry. But, having looked at the pieces he's had to work with in Dallas, in his time, I think he'd be very pleasantly surprised to see what he's got at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see just how they go. Again, not expecting much out of Indiana, and I think Carlisle's adjustment as a coach will be interesting. But at the same time, they've been really competitive. They've really pushed the envelope. And, again, I think Charlotte, Washington, along with Indiana they're going to be your 3 teams in the East that are going to cause some problems. They're going to get some unexpected wins. They're going to mix up some seedings. And if you're slightly off against those guys on any given night, then certainly would pencil them in for a win. And, probably the 3 teams in the East that if I'm on a back-to-back, or I've come off a back-to-back day rest and then into a game, I would certainly want to be very wary taking on Indiana, Charlotte or Washington. Atlanta continue to be Atlanta. Again, I think they'll be a playoff team. Trae Young, another one though, who is going to be, let's just say, a different type of scorer, very similar to a James Harden. He's not going to get those ref baits. He's not going to, be able to milk for the foul. He's going to have to do a lot of work there. So, again, that's going to be an adjustment to make, but they've got plenty of guys around them. They've still got plenty of bigs around them. But I think it will depend on Trae Young. Trae has a massive game. There's no doubt about it. Atlanta are on top. John Collins is still jumping out of the gym. They've still got quality rebounders. They've still got, some backup there. But again, I think the fortunes of Trae Young are really going to change a little bit here. And while the Eastern Conference Finals was perceived as a fluke last year, I think that'll just be reinforced as the season goes on. Bottom 8 team, I think they can avoid the play-in, or they might get stuck in the play-in, but I don't think that they're out of that playoff contention, that's for sure. And again, purely off the fact that Trae Young's offensive production, this is a guy who's able to have 32 and 9 on any given night. How consistently he has that 30 now due to not getting to the line, that is the question. So we will see what happens there. Miami, I think there's just some chemistry issues there at the moment. Jimmy Butler had a breakout game, albeit against Orlando, and we'll talk about them shortly. But I think just some chemistry issues. Tyler Hero off the bench has been a nice move there, and I think that's just a good little check for him to keep him off the floor and just to allow him to come in, play freely. So that's honestly what helped him in the bubble, the idea he could just come in and shoot and do what he wanted. He's had other instances where he wasn't able to do that. That's where he struggled, whereas if he's just going on, he's just shooting, he's essentially playing without thinking, then, which is a strange way to put it, but if he's playing without thinking and just playing on instinct, then he's a far better basketball player. And if he's going to do that off the bench, you're going to see him provide 15, 20 points a night. That's 6 man of the year sort of stuff. That's great scoring relief. So we will see how that all goes there. But again, I think it's just some chemistry issues there. Bam Adebayo is going to need to really pick up once again. I don't think he's quite lived up to where we thought he would be. He's still got some time there. But having PJ Tucker, having someone that can probably put a bit of mongrel into him, will help out as well. Kyle Lowry fitting in really nicely as well to that team. He'll like playing with the idea that he has Robinson and Hero on the perimeter. He will like the idea that he has PJ Tucker in the corner. Again, there's a lot to like about this Miami team. Again, I think they're going to be a top 4 seed. Again, chemistry issues though. We will see what happens there. As long as they can gel and live in the competitive environment Jimmy Butler brings, I think they'll be fine. Finally, Orlando, again, another bottom 5 team, but they have some plenty to like about them. Lots going on there at the moment. It's been good to see Cole Anthony playing well. But again, it's just a matter of seeing how these young guys go. And I think it's a bit of an exhibition team, Orlando, that you want to tune in, you want to watch some young athletes, some raw talent starting to harness their game. Certainly by the end of the decade, you want to look at a couple of these guys as potentially all-decade players. It'll be interesting to see just how they go. But again, I'm not expecting Orlando to do much better than the Detroits of the world, of the Clevelands of the world. So we will see what happens there. But again, they're going to be a young team that's probably going to surprise a couple of teams here or there. Maybe on an off night, maybe on a back-to-back, but I don't see them sitting there having a day break here or a 2-day break there and all of a sudden running over the top of the team that they weren't expected to. Heading over to the Western Conference, we look at Utah, and again, they're just Utah. They're just doing the same thing they've done the last couple of seasons. They're getting on with the job. They're winning games. They're jacking shots up. They've got interior rebounders. They've got rim protectors. They've got 3-and-D guys. And they're just continuing to plod along as Utah do, top of the Northwest Division as we speak. And at the moment, the team to beat in that Northwest Division. They're not going to be as challenged this year, I don't think, certainly not till Jamal Murray turns back up, but Minnesota's starting to gel, which will make it a little competitive. But yeah, I think Utah are just going to be that same team. They're going to get 50, 55 wins on the board. They're going to look like a tremendously good 3-and-D team. Rudy Gobert's going to get some great praise in the regular season as a defender. Yeah, you've got to transfer that to the playoffs now. You made a nice run last year. Let's capitalise on it. Let's go to the next step. For me, it is a matter of delivering in the playoffs. I'd have no doubt they're a good regular season team. Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley, Joe Ingles, Bojan. There's plenty to like about this team. Jordan Clarkson. So, there's no doubt about it. They can perform. They've got the pieces in the right spots, but it's just a matter of delivering when it matters. So, again, for me, I got no worries about Utah. I see them as a 50-win team once again. It's just a matter of them performing in the postseason. For Minnesota, they've developed a nice big three there. Anthony Edwards clearly does not have, at the moment, that sophomore slump. We'll see how that goes as the season goes on. But him and Karl Anthony Towns offensively are really leading this team. Pat Beverly trying to bring some fight to this team, really annoying Jonas Valanciunas in the most recent game against New Orleans. D'Angelo Russell providing a game winner only during the week as well. So they've got a couple of pieces there. But again, it's a matter of staying healthy, staying on the floor, and can we get the most out of Karl Anthony Towns finally? A big guy who can shoot the ball and really shoot the ball. We're talking about a 7-footer who can get 25 points, 10 rebounds, shoot 40% from the three. I think defensively he needs to pick up a little bit more hustle. Hopefully someone like a Beverly is going to bring that to that team. And there's plenty to like. I think Minnesota could very well scrape an 8th seed if they were to keep form as they are, but again, they're young and they've got to capitalise on this talent. Karl Anthony Towns has been an all-star, if not a borderline all-star. D'Angelo Russell has been an all-star, if not a borderline all-star. Anthony Edwards was very close to Rookie of the Year last year, and for me, probably would have given it to him just on the fact that he was on the floor. It was a war of attrition, a matter of last man standing last year, and for me, he was the last rookie standing. You've also got Pat Beverley, who is a former all-defensive team member. So there's plenty to like about this team. Again, they're not going to rock the world, but they are a side that could potentially knock you off on an off night if you weren't sure. They're the equivalent of Charlotte, Washington, or Indiana for me in the East. So we will see how they go out in the West. Certainly playing tournament capabilities here early on for Denver. They're going to want Jamal Murray back, but there's no doubt about that. They just need that secondary option. Looking at the level their second options are going to at the moment, your Michael Porter Jr.'s, your Will Bartons, your Monte Morris's, your Aaron Gordon's. They're not quite that 20, 22 point per game that they're going to need to complement the near 30 I think that Jokic is going to need this year. And he's proven his MVP status, by the way, early on. He's still getting 30, 15, and 5, or close to that triple-double range, or double-digit passes. Liability defensively, that will never change. I have no doubt about that, but he is certainly still that offensive force that got him an MVP trophy last year. Again, they're really going to need Jamal Murray to come back, in my opinion, and it's going to be a strange sort of a team until that does happen, because I just think they struggle to find consistent offensive options amongst the squad outside of Jokic. And while he can pass, you've got to have guys that can make buckets as well. So Michael Porter Jr., he's just going to need to really lift from that most improved season. He's the guy they'd be looking to want to get, floating around that 20 and 10 mark as well. Or at least 20 and 7. Can't really take Jokic off the boards, particularly if he's throwing outlet passes as he does. So we will see how that goes. But yeah, really waiting for Jamal Murray. I still think they're a playoff team. How high, I don't know. Jamal Murray is going to have to change that as well. But Jokic with a good start, he just needs some quality second and third options around him on a consistent basis. Portland, I did say I thought they were going to be the disappointment of the year, and they have started off in true fashion. I don't know what's going to happen with this team. I think the form they're on at the moment, they would have to be holding on to the All-Star break. It's not ideal. But again, we could be here next week. They could have 3 on the board. They're at 500. That changes things as well. You would have to suggest that Damian Lillard is certainly below where he normally is. Norman Powell isn't necessarily stepping up to where they thought he would be. Even Nurkic is being quiet. CJ McCollum continuing to ball. And I just wouldn't be shocked that if they're going to break this team up around the All-Star break, that you see McCollum, that you see Lillard, and you see Nurkic out of there. Adios. And McCollum certainly trying to build his stocks, because I would suggest that there would have to be some genuine talk around one Kyrie Irving and one Ben Simmons, with the potential of him moving to the East as a genuine scoring option from there. Where he fits in amongst that, I don't know, because Kyrie as a guard, he's not really a traditional point, but at the same time, he does provide that dynamic combo guard scoring option. Meanwhile, I think, ultimately, the solution for the 76ers would be to move Thibault into the starting lineup. You then question whether you handicap Maxey and Curry to bring in a McCollum, or do you trade them out? Who knows? We will see what happens there. But ultimately, I think this team's just going to try and make it to the All-Star break and reassess. If they bust up after the All-Star break, I wouldn't be so shocked. And unfortunately for Oklahoma City, they are going to be the cellar dwellers of the West, and I don't even think it's going to be close. I think it could be potentially 10-15 games difference from bottom of the table to 14th, which certainly isn't good. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander able to still do his thing, and Lou Dort still able to do his thing, but there's no real sense of urgency. There's a lot of draft picks. Don't win now, win later. How that pays off for your fan base, I don't know. But the last thing I would really want to do is ridicule and ostracise a fan base that I essentially had to buy because I moved a team from a popular market. We'll see how they go, but OKC certainly at the very lowest point of their franchise's brief history in Oklahoma City. You're also considering that you've gone away from Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook. Excuse me, oh, that's terrible. Apologies there, as we're getting away from getting closer to midnight here as I record this. Getting away from those great sort of players to trying to get things done, but essentially it's just a matter of stockpiling, lose now, win later. Can someone like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander afford that? Probably not. Can Lou Dort who's, certainly a perennial NBA contender for all NBA defensive team member, contender for me. Can they afford that? Don't know. So we will see what happens there. But I think OKC are going to be clear last in this case, and I don't see a team challenging them for the worst record. Certainly in the West, they may go close for the entire league, but we also have that conversation to be had with Detroit. Moving over to the Pacific Division, and we've got the Golden State Warriors, who, if they're going to keep playing the way they play and the way they had Klay Thompson, I think the West needs to be on high alert. Steph Curry's clearly in MVP-esque form. He has plenty of pieces around him at the moment that are complementary. Bielitsa has been massive for them on that team as well. Jordan Poole has played well. Andrew Wiggins is playing well. It's just guys getting amongst it and getting pretty much what they need to do. Otto Porter Jr., Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green's complimenting where he needs to. It's just Damian Lee is playing well. This is just a side that's starting to run on all cylinders, and the selflessness of Curry is really complementing it as well. My only concern will be is how they adjust with a Klay Thompson coming into the lineup, but knowing how motivated he is and will be in the back half of this season, feeling as he was, though, snubbed from the 75 all-time team, then this could be a very dangerous squad. And I think right now that everyone in the West is looking at this team, looking at how they're playing, looking at how their bench is rotating through. Andre Iguodala's there for some senior leadership as well. While he's pretty much done, he's providing those vital 1%ers probably off the floor as well that aren't being seen. And again, Klay Thompson coming in, Steph in MVP form. It could be a long season in the West if you are going up against the Warriors, and they are pretty much throwing them into the ocean, so to speak. Such is the accuracy of their shot. Yeah, as I said, the only question I think that really comes into it is what do you do when Klay Thompson enters the fray? But at the same time, they're a very good team, and Klay is a very good player. The Lakers, they're old. It's simple. They're slow. It's simple. They need to get better defensively. It's that simple. I don't really have much more to add. Westbrook slowly playing into his role. LeBron's played off ball as much as I've laid off the carbs in the last 5 years of my life. Anthony Davis, again, has shown moments, but just has that tendency to be soft. And there's also these questions around, okay, we're playing a game against Memphis. Memphis are on a back-to-back. Jazz had to go for 40, and Melo's led us to the win. It's not a shot at Melo. I'm just saying when Anthony Davis, LeBron James, and Russell Westbrook are on that side, Carmelo Anthony, who's essentially a fourth option right there, a lot of questions to be asked. A lot of leadership questions too. I mean, a lot of these senior guys aren't going to take the responsibility and probably use your Talon Horton Tuckers, obviously currently not in the squad. Malik Monk, for me, comes to mind. Using them as bailout options, that's the real question that needs to get asked there. Again, they're old, they're slow, they need to get better defensively. Ultimately, the other thing there is chemistry. Dwight and AD, pushing and shoving. You've got finger gun from Rondo. You've got LeBron, yapping on the bench, not checking in and doing anything about it. It just doesn't smell right to me, and I think it could be a typical LeBron situation. We get to the halfway point of the season, and a couple of trade pieces here or there. We try and boost the squad for a young run. But as I said, I am confident that you'll see LeBron James in Miami next year. It's just a hunch I've got. Pat Riley being fined $25,000 for tampering doesn't happen just as a bit of a joke. So we will see how that one plays out as well. Heading over to the Clippers, there is a lot of like about the Clippers. And again, I think they're going to be a side. They're going to be a playoff team, but I think they're going to be the real danger team for anyone who's facing them off a back-to-back. Paul George has had a mammoth season early on so far. No one's going to talk about it because he's not lighting everything up. But he's averaging 35, 10, and 5. He's playing elite All-NBA defense, Defensive Player of the Year level defense at the moment. And he's just trying to lead a young squad. And he's doing pretty well with it as well. I've done 2 videos on Paul George this season, and both of them have significantly gained likes well ahead of other players. That's including LeBron, that's including Giannis, that's including KD, that's including Steph. There's no doubt about it. Paul George is a very popular man right now. The LA media market's one thing, but number 2, he's going to finally get some respect. People don't realise what he did in Indiana. People don't realise he had a season finishing top 3 in MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and scoring. That's a pretty exclusive list. He's done it. So, there needs to be some respect on that. When Paul George has a couple of pieces around him and has that ability to lead a squad, he can do it. They blew Portland out today, or certainly in the last 12 to 24 hours as I record this video. 8 steals, 16 points, just getting the job done, sitting for most of the fourth quarter. They are going to be a decent team. Again, I think they avoid the play-in. I think they get about that 6th seed, but Paul George really playing to an MVP-esque level, certainly his 2018-19 form, and for me, he was pretty much the MVP of that season. Wasn't dirty that Giannis won it, but certainly could make a genuine case that Paul George was the best player on that season. Phoenix, again, I think it's going to be a little bit of a finals hangover. They haven't had as long off as everyone else, similar to Milwaukee, and I think that's something you'll have to consider. But Chris Paul is another year older, and I think that's another key factor as well. First player to 20,000 and 10,000. Congratulations. All the applause I can for you there, but at the same time, just has some stuff he needs to work on. And I think the Suns are just going to get back into that groove a little bit. DeAndre Ayton, I think the chemistry issue there is going to be a question. I do think Phoenix can be a playoff team, but they're going to really have to sort these little micro issues out very shortly. Devin Booker's going to have to start hitting. But there's plenty to like about this squad. I don't think much has really changed about this squad. I don't think they're going to be a finals team this year, but they're going to be a side that I think finishes middle of the pack in the West. They might win a series, they might upset a team here, but I don't see them doing really too much. But in saying that, if Chris Paul's going to hang around, and they've got a pretty proud history of guards at the Suns, your Kevin Johnsons, your Jason Kidd, your Steve Nash, just to name a couple. Dennis Johnson played on that team as well. Paul Westphal formerly played for them as well. So, plenty of good historical guard depth there. Chris Paul and Devin Booker certainly adding to that. But, I think it's going to be a drawing board team. If they get back to the finals by some miracle, then they just cement themselves, similar to when the Nets made it in that 02-03 period. Okay, make it once, but to make it twice means you were probably one of the better teams in the East. Then, certainly if Phoenix can do that over the next couple of years, that will sort of legitimise them in the minds of casual fans. But for me, Phoenix, middle of the pack team, they've got a lot of work to do, but a lot to work with. So we will see what happens. Sacramento, they had a couple of things here or there. Nothing too exciting. I think they're just still going through that growth period. But when you've got Harrison Barnes trying to lead the scoring, De'Aaron Fox trying to lead the scoring, Buddy Hield trying to be the man, it's just really hard. Mitchell for them as well has been sensational. Some very good defence there. Being played by him certainly as a rook, that's something to look up to as well. And that's another rook I didn't mention. Durate, who's playing well for Indiana. Jalen Green, I'll get to him shortly. Josh Giddey playing some good basketball as well. But for Sacramento, they're a young squad. They're not the deepest squad. Sometimes the wrong guys are leading the scoring. It is what it is. That's a numbers team. That's boost my profile and get out when I can. And I think they'll be sort of around that bottom three there with your Oklahoma Cities, along with, depends how this looks, probably Houston as well, but they're not playing as bad as I thought they would either. Again, that's a numbers team. There's, some spots to like about that Sacramento team, but it is essentially a numbers team as we speak. Memphis right now, Ja Morant is on fire. And had that team had beaten the Lakers, I have no doubt about it, he would be the player who would have been named Western Conference Player of the Week. Freak athlete, didn't really have too much of a sophomore slump, didn't progress as much as they would have liked, has exploded out of the blocks to start this season, and with some decent pieces around him, I think I can comfortably say that Memphis are going to be a playoff team, and at worst, 7th, 8th seed into the play-in tournament. So we will see how they go. They had a first round bounce last year, but plenty to like, plenty to see. And Jaren Jackson Jr. back into this squad permanently is going to be massive for them as well. Some very good size. And it's just a matter of people coming along for the ride. And it's probably a matter too of, just settling down. You can see that trying to get that pace and tempo into their game, reading the way the play is going. Love watching Ja fly downhill on a fast break, doing it 3 straight times, elevating the jumper or going ham at the rim. That's not a problem there. But got to be durable, got to read the room, and just really has to do some thinking around that as well. Memphis certainly a team that I would not want to face in a back-to-back, considering they themselves on a back-to-back against that very, as I said, they're old and slow, but as that very experienced Lakers team, to still nearly push them in, essentially be a foul shot away. Excuse me. Essentially, to be a foul shot away is a tremendous effort, and I don't think they're too far off from just trying to really crack that the upper echelon of that bottom four. For Dallas, it's still Luka. It always will be Luka. It always has been Luka, and looking forward, it always will be. But at the same time, they have had their pieces start to fall into place, and primarily, it's been good to see Tim Hardaway playing well, and it's also been good to see Kristaps playing well also. It's just a matter of getting them all on the same team and playing to the required levels. It's clear Luka's that man. And it's clear if Dallas is going to make a genuine run that he's going to have to be the MVP of this league. They've got to finish no worse than fourth. So there's a lot riding on his shoulders, and he is capable of doing it. But he does need the pieces. Excuse me. He does still need the pieces around him to deliver. And it's about time to get some consistency out of Tim Hardaway. It's been my ultimate criticism of Tim Hardaway for most of his career. Has that ability to be an all-star. I've got no doubt about that. Look at the stock he comes from. Look at the games he's played throughout his career against some of the best players to have ever laced them up, let alone the best players in the league. He can get it done. We all know what Porzingis was able to do before he did his knees. And again, knees are going to be the absolute crucial thing for a guy who's 7'2", 7'3", and remove the seat out the back of his car just so he can drive. So as long as they start clicking, then Dallas will be fine. But I think, again, it's just going to be very interesting to see how Luka develops under Jason Kidd. We'll see how that one goes there. But they're second in their division, and generally if you're going to finish top two in any division, you're guaranteed to be a playoff team. As I said, in the East, in the Atlantic Division, pardon me. Again, in the Atlantic Division, 4 of the 8 playoff teams are there. If I'm going to be honest, to look around here, I would suggest that we're probably 3-3. We could be 3-3-2 across each conference, depending how Phoenix go or depending how Minnesota go. Will change that, but you could be looking at 4 of the 5 playoff teams in the West coming from the Pacific. 4 of the 8 from the West in the Pacific Division, 2 in the Northwest and 2 in the Southwest. And for me, there's no doubt about it. I think Dallas would be the second team in that Southwest Division. They've just got to get wins where they can and capitalise on those second, third options when they start hitting their streets. For Houston, a lot to like about this team as a young team. Again, I don't think they get much further than the bottom, certainly the bottom half of the bottom 7. Playing is an absolute stretch at this point, but at the same time, Kevin Porter Jr., Jalen Green, Christian Wood, Jayshawn Tate, they're 3 or 4 guys that have been really exciting to watch. And it's good to see Christian Wood back on the floor. For me, it would have been my most improved last year had he been able to stay fit. Didn't happen. I had Jeremy Grant as my most improved last year. Didn't win it. Julius Randle did, and thoroughly thoroughly deserved it too. But there's no doubt he's got a fair bit riding on him here, Christian Wood, and he will want to get that done. Jalen Green, freak athlete. He's my pick for Rookie of the Year, but he's coming off a bit of a long run here at the moment. I actually think that the young rookie in Cleveland, Girarte, I believe it is currently leading that race. Jayshawn Tate and Kevin Porter Jr., though, they're going to be good little combo pieces. The ability to score, the ability to distribute and create a highlight as well. Playing off of what Green's athleticism is, which is freak athleticism, and certainly a Christian Wood who, he's a big guy who's able to, he's reasonably athletic, he's reasonably mobile, but he's able to work it around as well. So, again, I don't see Houston doing anything special. I think they could be a bottom 3 team, to be quite honest with you. But at the same time, they show that potential to try and really push things and really get the growth going and try and draw some attraction back to the city of Houston. For the Spurs, they're running with a very similar roster. It's kind of hard for me to comment on where I think the Spurs are going to be. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team, but they show signs of being able to still spread that ball around, still play a team game. I'd like to see these guys break out a little more. How much they're allowed to break out is another question. Your Keldon Johnsons, your Derek Whites, your Deontay Murrays, your Lonnie Walkers. those are the guys I want to see break out. Those are the guys I want to see, putting their hand up going, right, it's the fourth quarter, I need 15 points. I'm the guy that's getting 15 points. I'd like to see a bit more of Jock Landale. For me, I thought Jock Landale was probably the best big not be playing in the NBA at the moment, but he's on limited minutes, understandable. He's an international. He's still a young kid. He's definitely be walk-up starting with the Australian national team. He's a bronze medalist in that national team for the Olympics with Paddy Mills, so it'll be interesting to just see how he plays out as well. But I just think for the Spurs that, they need to understand what's next, and I think they need to let these young guys just go for it and trust them on their instincts. Who knows, could make a miracle run towards the playoffs. I don't personally see it happening, but, your Johnsons, your Walkers, your Wrights, your Murrays, just let them go out, let them play basketball. Don't hamstring them from this system. The system currently doesn't work. Just let them go out and do what they need to do. I think San Antonio is still a bottom 5 seed for me, but they've got the pieces to do it. They are playing the Lakers after the conclusion of this video, so probably 14 hours after this video, they'll be playing the Lakers. And if there's a team that they can shock and upset, it's going to be that older Lakers team, and that'll be a good confidence boost for them as well. Finally, New Orleans. Brandon Ingram right now is leading that team, another guy who drags the views on the highlights. Again, the real question there with the Pelicans is going to be their depth. I'm glad that Jonas Valanciunas is on that team, and I'm pretty sure I saw Steven Adams on that team as well. So, a lot of depth on that squad. I'm pretty sure, as far as height, as far as talent. The other question is the fitness of Zion Williamson, the weight of Zion Williamson, and what is Zion going to be when he comes back? All questions I can't answer, and, just that real fear that he's going to want to go and play somewhere else. Where he goes and where he plays is another question. Who can afford him? But, yeah, Brandon Ingram, solid player, has been a solid player for a while. Was the most improved a couple of years ago. For me, is still trying to push into that upper echelon. He's, still an all-star or borderline all-star at worst. But I think he certainly needs to be playing against those bigs who can get those boards. And I think he just needs that inside scorer, as he's sort of a mid-range stretch, sort of a Carmelo Anthony sort of player there. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. Again, it's going to come down to just how Zion's going to play. How well he plays, I don't know. How fit he's going to be, I don't know. He's rumoured to be coming in at 311 pound, which is ridiculous. Where I would prefer that Shaq come in at 311 pound, not Zion Williamson. And don't get me wrong, great internal scorer. But this is a guy who's played 85 NBA games and just trying to control everything, and that isn't really how it should be. New Orleans as a playoff team, I think, is a stretch. I think as a playing team, absolutely, they have that potential to do that. But I don't see them as a genuine playoff team. So, again, they're going to have to continue to push through, see what they can get out of these players. And I think their next priority, if Zion Williamson is going to continue to give them grief, then there is no doubt about it in my mind that their priority needs to be with Brandon Ingram and utilising the bigs and the pieces around him. Anyway, guys, that's been my wrap for week 1 of the NBA season. Apologies for the yawns in there. I'm currently filming at 12:15 on a Wednesday morning. Massive day ahead tomorrow. But it's hoops. That's what it's about. Live life, shoot hoops, ball is life, all that sort of stuff. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast version or watching whatever you are doing with this video. Appreciate the support. Follow me on Facebook, JB's NBA. That's JAY-B, like Jay-Z, but with a B. JB's NBA. Follow me on Twitter, Justin_G_Brian. Like the video. Leave a comment. Let me know how you feel each team's faring, how different players are faring, what you expect moving forward in the next month or so with the NBA. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. So I will leave you with that one there. They're my thoughts after week 1, and we will probably come back in a week or so's time and see how things are playing out and maybe just hit some hot topic issues as well. So anyway, guys, that's been me. I'm out.